Good evening, folks. Welcome back to another Monday night live stream. Hope everybody's well. Hope your weekend was awesome. Hope you had a lovely time. I hope you managed to get a little bit of time to yourself, maybe a little bit of hobby time, maybe even playing a game. But here we are back, the start of the week again, and it's Monday night live time. So let's say a little hello to everybody in the chat. Ian was in nice and early there. Lord Maiden, hello, buddy, asking what everybody thinks of the question in hand tonight. So the question in hand tonight, so of course we've got the normal kind of bit of news roundup with things that's happening in the tabletop world. But the question I'm going to ask tonight is kind of when it comes to updates to your miniatures games, you know, whether it be kind of like points costs or kind of tweaks to the stats or kind of rule tweaks or anything like that, how often is too often? And I'll kind of come on to what piqued that question in a little bit time when we're going to kind of start off a conversation. But yeah, that's what we're talking about tonight. How often is too often? Do you like your games to kind of have a set rules, set points, that kind of thing, and then that just kind of continues for the life of the game? Do you like regular updates to kind of to keep the meta changing? Are you a really competitive player and that's what drives it? That's what we're talking about tonight. Peter Kuhlman, good evening to you, mate. Hello, Mark Wright as well. Ortega, hello, buddy, and their catch up there. Tol Martin as well, good evening. Cardos is in as well. Said he's by time to cook a meal and listen to BlackJack Legacy. What kind of meal are you making, mate? Christian, good evening to you as well, fella. We've got Ian Webb, good evening. And we've got Frantic and Connor, good evening to you, fine gents. VJ, good morning to you. He says, what's up, party people? Glenn Griffin, hello to you as well, buddy. Ed's in as well. Good evening. Busey says it's only a party if it's a secret party. It's not a party if it's a business meeting. That's what you mean. Luke, hello to you as well, mate. Good evening. Hello to Phil. Kath Smith, evening to you and the Smith clan. Matthew Wilkinson said he's waiting in his car, waiting for his kid to get off work. Good evening, Matthew. Hope you're well. Camo, hello. Good morning. Michael Cowan's in as well. Peter Stockdale, hope lives. We've got Samir in as well, and he says we are gathered once again. Hobby time. Hello, Samir. I hope you're well. Vijay's in there, do it once per edition and do it right. We'll come on to that, mate. I'm not sure I completely agree with that, but yeah, we'll come on to why anyway. Hello, Bobby Clark. How are you doing, mate? Bobby Clark has been painting some amazing Malifaux stuff, buddy. I was well jealous of the stuff you've been painting. Robert Zung, good evening to you, Rob. Stu's in as well. It's his first time back for a while. Looking forward to it. Well, welcome every single one of you tonight. We've got a few things to chat about later on when it comes to kind of news and stuff. I might even... I've got probably too much stuff to talk about, so I'll probably slide some of them back into next week's news as well. But yeah, I feel like we're kind of, you know, the year's started well. We're starting to get into that groove now. The Christmas lull's gone and the companies are starting to kind of ramp up again now, and the new stuff's starting to get released, which is always exciting. Hendrik, good evening to you, and Jeff Hickton is in as well, says happy Monday all. So what have you all been up to then? What's your weekend entailed? What have you been working on? Did anybody get to play any games? What are you working on tonight? Last week I was finishing off an absolute metric ton of MDF terrain. I got sent a set by Warcradle, which was their Promethean Forge kit, and it took a lot longer than I expected. It wasn't difficult to build, there was just lots of bits to it. So that was my work week. Last week was swallowed up a lot by that. That's all done now. So the video for that, the review of that will go up this week. And then on Thursday night I managed to get to my local club and had a game of Marvel Crisis Protocol. I took my Avengers list. I played against a friend of mine called Lee, and he was playing his Spider Foes, and yeah, I got beat. But I did all right. It was a fun game, and I enjoyed it, so that's all that matters. Where are we up to here? Andrew Fairbanks, am I welcome here? You're always welcome, buddy. As long as you don't give me any grief about the Rams. Paul Inman, good evening to you. And he's saying it depends on how big the tweaks are and how much they're going to try and mug me for in order to get the updated rules. That is something that we will definitely touch on, mate. Henrik says he's looking forward to Firefight. Yeah, not too long, buddy, now. I think, off the top of my head, I remember, was it March time? We're going to start to hear a bit more about that two-player starter set. Tolmart's putting together his Dead Zone starter. Camo said he had his first game of Necromunda last week at his friendly local gaming store. Scott Webster says a house full of sick people means I get to join live for the first time in a while. Nice to see you, Mr. Webster. Christian saying he played D&D on Saturday. Great little one-shot. And then he spent Sunday putting together some cupboards for his 3D printers. It's coming to something, isn't it, when you have to buy furniture for all your geek stuff. Excuse me. Jason saying big game tonight for the Rams. It is, mate. Unfortunately, it's like a 1:15 in the morning for me kickoff. So I'm not staying up for that. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to try and not look at my phone when I first wake up in the morning and go straight and watch the game when I get up, or watch the highlights. Certainly, anyway, I can't be staying up till 1:15. That'll screw the rest of my week up. I think I will stay up for the if we get to the Super Bowl. I'll obviously be watching that one, but. Yeah, I'm not staying up for this one. Scott says he can't stay tonight, so he's saying the catch-up. See you in the catch-up, mate. Henrik saying any news on Dead Zone weekend or campaign? A Dead Zone weekend or campaign? I don't know anything about a Dead Zone weekend or campaign, mate. Walter Pruder, good evening to you, mate. Mark says he started his Halfling Mega Army at the weekend and had a few games at Kings of War. I started my Halfling Mega Army a while ago, and I went back to it was a couple of weeks ago, or maybe over the Christmas. Actually, it wasn't. It was early January, because I was considering building, I forget what it's called now, but the kind of like the pig sort of looking thing, whatever it is, like the big kind of mechanical thing. I was going to think about building and painting that for my the kind of the go big or go home January challenge, and unfortunately there was some mispacks, some missing parts. And then when I emailed Mantic, I then got the out of office saying that the customer service was out until the 13th of January, so they only just got back to me this week. So that's kind of went in the back burner for a while now. Let's have a little look. Samir saying, what's the 2-player firefight set? Is that bolt action skirmish? No, mate, it is. Firefight is the kind of it's a bigger scale game than Dead Zone by Mantic, so it's set in the Warpath universe. It's smaller than the kind of army scale Warpath, but it's larger than Dead Zone. And there's been the Firefight 2.0 rules have been going through like an alpha and beta playtesting, and then I think it's March, April time this year, the 2-player starter set for the new Firefight 2.0 rules is launched. I think I talked about it a few weeks ago. If we get time, I'll kind of do a bit more about it tonight. We'll have a little talk about it. Greg Cherry, good evening, mate. He says he's painting up Town Folk Tussle. I do like that game, mate. Walter says he's been busy with the other side online league and now Malifaux World Series. Oh, I didn't know there was an online league, mate. James Bray, good evening to you as well, buddy. Ed saying, damn it, tough internet erased my comment. I'm the other end of the spectrum from VGA. Balance adjustments every quarter, please. Wow, honestly, we will get to that. Yoakum, good evening to you. VG says, I'm not so much half-done terrain. Oh, I've got so much half-done terrain for games MDF sitting around. I got early getting back into the hobby, but now with Ramparts, Kill Team, Warcry battle systems, it doesn't seem worth finishing. I know what you mean. Sometimes when if you don't finish a project when you started, you can sometimes get like sidetracked, and it becomes like so long down the path you go, oh, there's just that, the energy and the attachment's gone by that point. Cal Smith says, happy Tuesday to the Sooty. Henrik says, Rob told something about a campaign in Q1, just like the Kings of War campaign. I don't know anything about it, mate, in that case. I've not spoken to anybody from Mantic this year, so yeah, I don't know anything about it. Chuck and Deb Taylor says, happy holiday at home, can watch you on the big screen. Well, hello on the big screen. Bobby says he's painting a farmer and a sheepdog for his girlfriend's dad. It's going on his big train layout set up in his attic. I wonder, I've always thought kind of like train aficionados, people who build kind of model railways tend to just buy kind of pre-painted stuff. I didn't realise they were into that kind of painting stuff. Somberlin, good evening as well. Said he's building some knolls for Frostgrave tonight. Wayne's in as well, evening. He says he's doing more camo on his British airborne bolt action. It says he got his X-Men on the table yesterday and beat his buddies Defenders on round 4. Yeah, I've got X-Men's getting a bit of love at the minute. I think they seem to be making a bit of a kind of a bit more of an appearance these days since they had a little bit of tweaks. You are welcome, Samir. No problem at all. Jez, good evening as well. VJ says, time to get some stuff done. Eric, hello to Eric. He says, actually catching you live for once over in the US. Good afternoon to you, sir. I hope you're well. To the Aussies, that's why it said. Luke says he's got a couple of games of one of his favourites, Res Arcana, in last week. Not had a chance on Mindset to get any painting done lately. Yeah, my painting table's kind of been filled up with all the MDF terrain, so I've kind of, my paintings took a little bit of a backseat recently, but it's all done now, so should be back on the painting wagon. Greg saying Marvel Zombies tomorrow. I've got an alarm set in my phone, mate. I wanna see how much that's gonna set me back. Joel Anderson, good evening. He says, great couple of games of Dead Zone on Saturday. He spent today painting up his first minis from Moonstone. Absolutely stunning sculpts. A joy to paint. The Moonstone stuff is very nice, mate, isn't it? I must admit, I do like the minis. Carter says, veggie burgers with a green curry sauce. Sweep it. Oh, it all sounds lovely. I've been on a bit of a health kick, mate. I've been doing a bit of a detox for the last 8 days. It's my 9th day tomorrow. So, yeah, I'm kind of like, I'm not craving food, but I'm craving sort of flavour and stuff, because I've been obviously restricting some of the stuff that I've been eating for a little while. I did put on a nasty chunk of weight over the Christmas and winter period, probably largely in part of because of Guinness, not so much because of food. But yeah, I've been good. I've not been drinking. I think I've lost about, in the last 8 days, I'm trying to remember back now, I've lost about 7 or 8 pounds. So yes, I'm getting back to a healthy weight, shall we say. Glenn says, can you put the feelers out to Mantic to see if they're still planning to do another run of the Resin Walking Dead stuff, or going to restock some of the Dead Zone stuff? They're definitely not restocking any of the plastic stuff. None of that will get restocked. I do remember them saying they were going to redo some resin stuff. However, it doesn't end until the end of March. So is it March the 30th? I think it is March the 31st. So there's still time, but I guess they're probably not wanting to kind of overdo it, really. So I've got no idea, mate. I know there was some stuff on the forums on Facebook and stuff talking about it. Somebody had said that they'd said they were going to do it, and then somebody had said they weren't going to do it now. So I must admit, I've got no idea. But yeah, to be honest, you're probably better off getting in touch with them yourself, mate, through Facebook. Ed's seen a lot of training enthusiasts buy custom resin, so need to paint it. My dad's very into his layout and buys nearly as much Citadel paint as I do. I didn't realise that, mate. I always assumed most railway stuff, other than the actual kind of like the layout and the terrain, if you like, I always assumed most of it was kind of almost pre-made stuff. Marcus says, afternoon, my nerdy people. Just says he's been doing more Stargrave terrain, and he's painting a Viking period shield that he's making at the minute. Very nice. Greg says, guessing 7 million. I don't think I'll be able to go all in on that one, mate, if that's the case. Carter says, hope you feel better doing the diet. To be honest, mate, it was more just a kind of a case. Obviously, I had like a bit of a health scare last year, and then I just kind of, to be honest, I've kind of had some heart issues as well, and it kind of put me off exercising. I was a bit worried, if I was honest, about kind of like pushing myself a bit. And then obviously over the Christmas and stuff, lots of kind of family gatherings and nights out and that kind of stuff. It was a combination of not really moving very much and probably sort of having a bit of a party season. So yeah, I just needed to do it. So I've been getting back to the gym. I've been to the gym every day for the last 8 days. I've been eating better, drinking more water, off the booze, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm kind of, I'm not sure. I wouldn't say I feel any better. I still ache on a morning every day. But yeah, I think that's just getting old, mate. Luke, I was 17 the last time I was at a healthy weight. Yeah, I wouldn't say I'll ever get to what's technically called a healthy weight. I remember years ago I lost a lot of weight. I went to Weight Watchers and lost a lot of weight, kind of following like a proper eating plan, and got down to, I don't know if it's like this around the world, but in the UK you have the BMI, which is the your kind of like the point at which your weight and your height kind of like marry up on this chart type thing, and there's like a range that they say if you're this height, this is the weight you should be, kind of thing. And I once kind of just kind of tipped into the top end of what my healthy BMI was, and essentially I looked like I was dying. I don't think I've got a frame that's really built to be that. So yeah, I know what I need to be kind of healthy, if you like. And I've got a little bit to go, but not too much. Jess says that's a whole leg or something that you lost. I've got quite big legs, to be fair, mate. It's probably just under a leg. It's probably like a knee and down, I think, and maybe it's a hand. Saying that's awesome. Thank you very much. He's nearly 30 pounds down over the last year and 3 pant sizes. Well, congratulations, mate. It is not easy, I'll tell you that. Ian saying he was 11 when he's at a healthy weight. Derek, hello to you, buddy. How are you doing? Jason said he tried kicking a diet soda, but I've already fallen off the wagon. Yeah, I've not had any kind of like fizzy drinks and stuff. I've kind of kept off the syrupy coffees and things. I mean, it's pretty dull, I'll be honest. It's not fun. But unfortunately, sometimes you've just got to make these sacrifices and kind of knuckle down and try and look after yourself a little bit. But yeah, of course I prefer eating pizzas and drinking beers and stuff like that. But I this is kind of to get me on an even keel, and then I can kind of sort of flex. I can still enjoy nights out as long as I kind of keep moving, do my exercise, all that kind of stuff, and don't do it every day. Samir says lots of kickboxing and sadly a massive reduction in beer intake. I can also paint straighter lines now. Yeah, bet, mate. Phil says so in a couple of months you'll be doing topless streams all hinged up. Yeah, there's no bodybuilding, mate. When I say I'm going to the gym, I'm kind of doing cardio and stuff. I'm doing exercises and stretching and stuff, core stuff. There's no kind of weight training going on. Christian sharing the link for the Patreon there. Thank you very much. Do appreciate that, mate. Jacob says, to me, I haven't had a lick of booze since New Year's Eve, and I can see in general I feel a lot better. Did I have I had any drink since New Year? I can't remember. Have I been to I don't think I've been to the pub. Oh, I did. I had a couple of nights out with one night out with my son. We went and had a night away, and we went round. We went to town. So yes, I have. And Samir saying, check out the GM diet. It's tough, but for a week you'll be amazed. Yeah, to be honest, mate, kind of what I've done for the last weeks kind of is work to get me right. It's more just about kind of it's not rocket science, is it? Move more, eat less kind of thing. Calorie deficit. It's not really kind of like anything groundbreaking, but yeah, sometimes it's not the easiest thing to start it. So Ian saying weight training's the best way to lose and maintain body mass. I just find it dull, mate, if I'm perfectly honest. I'm not really I'm not looking to kind of shape up or anything like that. I'm not even really looking to lose massive amounts of weight. It's more just kind of like I basically put on enough weight that I buy a shirt in a bigger size, and I don't really want to be doing that. So I bought one new shirt because I was going out, and then it was like, right, that's it. Knock it on the head now. Let's get back down so I can get back into my old clothes. Jess says, with his healthy diet of rollies and coffee and eating any old rubbish, I've never gone over 11 stone. I think a lot of mine as well, mate, is I'm on some medication for my heart and stuff, and I really feel like it's kind of slowed my metabolism down a bit, because I can feel a change in me since I've been taking it. I feel a bit colder. I just feel like my body's not working as hard as it used to. So. And Ed saying when he was into his martial arts, he was around 170 pound and cut to 155. I can't even remember what I am in pounds and stuff like that. I know stones and pounds, but I don't know like kilos or like in pounds. Anyway, I'm sure you didn't come here for my diet chat. You come here to chat tabletop. So we might as well start with the main topic tonight. So the main topic. So what I'll do is, if I can switch to this. So this is the inspiration. This is kind of, it's almost a little bit of news, and it's also the thing that inspired me to talk about this tonight. So for those just joining, the topic tonight that I'm going to talk about is basically when it comes to kind of tweaks and updates to the rules of your games, how often is too often? And the reason I'm talking about this, I'm sure some of you know, that basically yesterday, I think it was, might have been Sunday, and this has been mentioned previously, but it was there was a note on the Warhammer community site this weekend, and saying that basically for everyone that wants up-to-the-minute missions, secondary objectives and points values for competitive and matched play, the Grand Tournament Pack and the Munitorum Field Manual 2022 are set to hit pre-order next week. So, for those that don't know, this is basically where if you play competitively, if you play matched play for Warhammer 40k, this is where all of the point costs are for the models in your army. So, Matched play, when you're playing 40k, basically has every model and weapons and stuff have a point attached to them, and this is how you kind of build your list. If you're playing narrative play or open play, there's other things you can use, or you basically just put models on the table. You don't necessarily have to use points. But if you want to play the matched play way, if you want to play the competitive side, this is something that you need. And this has been kind of happening for a little while now. I forget when it first started, but when I kind of first got into tabletop gaming, Warhammer 40k, you bought your codex, and in the codex had all of the points that were attached to your army. So you basically bought the rules, you bought the codex. It told you all the different units, and it told you how much it would cost to field them on the game table, if you like. And then I forget when it happened, but certainly it was before 2020. I forget how long it's been. I mean, 2019 maybe. They started to do this thing called chapter approved, and what they did was, whenever you bought a codex, there was no points in the codex. The points were in this chapter approved thing. It started first with Age of Sigmar, when they did the General's Handbook, because originally there were no points in Age of Sigmar, and they did this thing called the General's Handbook, and all of the points were in there, and they kind of took that idea and moved it over to 40k. And they used to do it, I think it was every December, a new one would come out. These are all the new points for the kind of the next year. It took into account any kind of broken lists and that kind of thing. And one of the good points was it didn't suddenly kind of outdate your codex, because your codex didn't have like old points in it, for example. It was £25. It was once a year kind of thing, and it would allow them to sort of tweak things, as in the last 12 months lots of codexes would have come out and things would have changed. So fast forward now, and Games Workshop are talking about they're now doing this thing called seasons. And seasons, well, you can see here, it says get ready for a new season of competitive and matched play in the first installment of Chapter Approved 2022. So essentially what they're doing with seasons is they're going to do these things, which are basically, a season now lasts for 6 months, and there's going to be certain missions that they kind of like will play in the competitive scene. And it looks like, from what they're saying here, is that that Chapter Approved is now going to come out every 6 months. So if you're a competitive 40k player, you will have to buy 2 Chapter Approved per year, because all of the points are going to change. A lot of the missions are going to change, and some of the different, like, I think it talks about something else as well. I think it talks about here. So it comes with 18 missions, 9 each for incursion and strike force sized games, as well as new and updated secondary objectives, letting you flex your tactical skill against worthy opponents on an equal footing. So essentially that's what it's going to do. And that was what prompted this question. Not so much directed at 40k or directed exactly at Games Workshop, but just in my head I thought, 6 months to keep tweaking a game feels like a little bit too much to me. Now, I was kind of thinking about this, and Ed was just saying in the chat there, he's a competitive gamer, he'd happily have it updated every 3 months. Now, I think it really does depend upon what kind of gamer you are, and how often you play as well, because even as a competitive gamer, you might still only play, like if you go to an event, let's say, if you go to an event once a month, and you might play, let's say you play 6 games at an event or something like that, you're still only playing 6 times in that 6 months period. So you're only getting to really use that army or getting to use the points that they're providing 6 times before it's basically that book's now no longer relevant and you have to buy another one. So even if you're a relatively busy competitive player, if you like, because I think going to one tournament a month is still at the heavier end of stuff. That's quite a lot. If you're playing maybe twice a week or something like that, maybe it's a bit more important to you. But it starts to make me think about how long it takes them to obviously prepare all this information and update it and get it into a printable format and get it printed and get it shipped back from China and then get it shipped around the world and get it sent out. The points that they're working on now, you won't see probably for 6 months. So they're not really reacting to what the meta's doing. They're reacting to what they think the meta is doing by the last time they changed it. it feels, for me personally, every 6 months feels a little bit too soon. I'll come on to the fact that they're also charging for these updates as well, because I think that's a separate point, but we'll not touch on that for the second. If you look at something like Marvel Crisis Protocol that I'm playing quite heavily at the moment, the game's been out for 2 years, and they've only just now tweaked some of the not so much the rules, but they've tweaked some of the points costs and the abilities that different characters have, and that's probably in part because all of the information is on a character card, and rather than keep changing them constantly, they've kind of done it as in, let's have a look at the game now. It's at 2 years old. Let's have a look, see how it's panning out, and then let's kind of do that update, and we'll come back and revisit it again in the future. Those cards basically are free to download and print off yourself. It doesn't kind of invalidate anything that you've got. It's basically just it's a tweak to kind of to pick up a few models that's maybe not seeing the love now, and as they've understood the game a little bit more over time, it's allowed them to kind of reword or retweak some stuff. So that to me feels fine. I remember kind of going through things like War Machine when I used to play it, and used to get like the Steamroller pack every year, which had all of the competitive stuff in, but the Steamroller pack was a free download online. Kings of War basically gets its annual update with its Clash of Kings, and that is it. You do pay for that, but it's also linked to some other stuff as well when you get that information. So doing kind of annual updates isn't really unheard of. I think somebody said today that kind of X-Wing used to do it on a much more frequent basis. I'm not familiar with X-Wing, but I think the difference with X-Wing is it's all digital. Everything is done via an app, so it almost happens without you really thinking about it too much. I just think the games where you spend a lot of time kind of building and crafting a big army, a lot of that is based upon, well, this is what the points cost. It's going to take me maybe 6 months, 12 months to get an army together, and it's almost before you've even had a chance to give that army a run out, things have changed. And there's a fine balance between changing to keep the game fresh and changing to sort of steer the game in a different direction if maybe like certain lists are being abused. So there's a fine line between that and then just changing for changing's sake. And sometimes I get the impression, I'm not saying this is what happens, but I get the impression that sometimes some games basically change purely to confuse the meta, to almost like shake things up before anybody gets a chance to abuse it, before people have settled into it, before people have really kind of got their head round everything and said, right, now I can see what's worth taking, or this is worth taking, that's not worth taking, from a very competitive standpoint. And I think that rather than like letting that happen, if you just keep shaking it up, it's almost like the cards are moving so fast you can't really kind of sort of get your hand on it. And of course, it's a driver for sales when all of a sudden that thing that wasn't seeing any love and isn't getting much play on the tabletop, all of a sudden if you drop the points for it or if you up the firepower on it, people will start buying it and they'll start playing it. So there's a real kind of mix to all that. How often's too often? I guess that's really up to the kind of individual. For me, I think once a year is probably about right. I think anything more than once a year and you're either a very, very competitive game, something like kind of Magic the Gathering type thing where you're constantly redoing new releases and kind of doing it. I don't think that's right for a miniatures game where people take time to build and paint and plan an army out and maybe don't play as often. I personally don't think kind of less than once a year is right, but I'm sure you folks will have different opinions. So let me know down in the chat and in the comments if you're watching this back in the rerun. Let me know what you think. Now, when it comes to kind of charging for it, that's where I feel it gets a little bit funny for me. So we were having a brief chat about this in the Patreon today, in the Patreon chat, because people will say, I don't think anybody else really charges for it. And I'd say, well, I know Mantic do. And as I said before, things like the Clash of Kings, there's point updates in there, and they do charge for it every year. And then there's things like, so I mentioned about Armada, and if you want to play with the Flyers, the Flyer rules are in the expansion. So you need to kind of the Seas of Flame expansion, so you need to pick that up. Now, when it comes to kind of smaller games that are not just doing like constant releases every single week, and they're not also selling, they're not selling codexes, which are also needed for your armies, and all that kind of stuff, I can see why an annual paid update is needed, and why it works, because companies need money coming in. You know, if people are playing Kings of War, for example, and they've got their army and they're not buying new stuff all the time because there's not new stuff coming all the time like there does for 40k, I can see that there's a need to keep generating and keep people engaged and refresh the missions and refresh the points. And I think a lot of it is tweaking, basically. I'm not that comfortable about a 6-month payment to just kind of change the points for changing the points' sake, because that's how it feels to me. And I think that's my complaint. I think if they were changing them every 6 months and they were free, I don't think I'd really question it. I don't play the game; it doesn't really affect me. I'm just kind of having an opinion from afar, really. So, a £25 a book, it's not a massive amount of money, but I do kind of question how much actual sort of play time do the vast majority of people who buy this book actually get out of it before it's kind of outdated and it's replaced with something else. So let's have a look and see what folks in the chat think. Yeah, Andrew Fairbanks is saying there, he says July was the General's Handbook. It used to be December, mate, and then I think it was December 2019 there was one, and then there was a new one in July 2020, and then it was July 2021, and then so there was one in July 2021 last year, and now there's one in January 2022. So the last one, it's only been 6 months since the last one as well. It's going to be 6 months until the next one. But it used to be annually, and it used to be end of December. It used to be December, and then they moved it to July. But it was still like an annual thing from July to July. Oh, sorry, yeah, it's in the General's Handbook. Yeah, I think the chapter approval is the same as well, though. See, the thing about everyone complaining is that a lot of these people don't buy anything because they already have everything for their army. I'm not sure that's the case, mate. When it comes to competitive GW players, I don't think they're not buying anything. I think some people won't be. But I think when it comes to competitive stuff, I don't think it is. Plus, I also think that catering to the competitive market is one thing, but the vast majority of people who buy Games Workshop miniatures are not competitive players. Kath says, I like simple for rules. Constant updates cause me to lose interest. I think there is that as well. There's a lot of chat at the minute about that some people have just kind of like lost focus a little bit on 40BK because there's so much comes out for it. And 90% of it is not needed, by the way. Like 90% of it is all optional. It's like sort of narrative missions, or it's like bits and pieces like that. It's not all needed, but it's never really obvious what's not needed. And I think anybody new coming in, it's really like it's almost confusing as to what you actually need to play. And it might be dead easy to say, well, it depends on how you want to play. It depends who you're playing with. There's an easy route in. There is an easy route in, but I don't think it's made blatantly obvious. Phil Johnson says, totally understand why the tournament grinders want frequent updates, but I think the match play, open play thing is false dichotomy. Casual matched is a real thing. I think most people, the vast majority of people who play 40k, play matched play because they want to be able to evenly match their armies against their opponent, but they're probably playing very casually, like in a garage, in their shed, at a local club or something like that. They're not playing competitive lists, but they do want to kind of roughly balance their armies out. So I think the vast majority of people are playing matched play, but not on a competitive scale. And I think by assuming matched play is just competitive players, I think kind of misses a massive chunk of the player base. Jess says they've always known how to get folks to unload cash at them. It's pretty unpleasant, but they're good at it. Yeah. Glenn says, I think it's a good thing for a game to get continuous support. Before I go on the rest of your question there, continuous support is great. Continuous change, I think can be detrimental to the game. But yeah, continuous support, absolutely. If that's new releases, if it's new scenarios, that kind of thing, that's absolutely fine. But keep changing things so that people like haven't even got time to get their head around them, I think is a bit different. He goes on to say, aside from Games Workshop, a lot of other games companies release games, support for the short term, and then the game gets no updates. A game doesn't always need updates, though, if it works well. It needs support. It needs new stuff to buy. It needs sort of new things to keep people interested. It needs kind of social media support even from the companies. It needs the company talking about it. It needs the community talking about it. But it doesn't need to constantly change if the game works fine. But it does need support, and it needs kind of love and attention, if you like. Things like FAQs, like updating FAQs on a regular basis, that kind of stuff I find is kind of, it goes along them lines. Dave Mini Menagerie, so I think Malifaux releases a better balance patch and new tournament rules packs once per year. Yeah, I forgot to mention Malifaux. They do that. They do their Gaining Grounds pack once a year, and it works really well. I think conversely, you've got people like War Cradle with things like Wild West Exodus, and I think when they release their game, they update it really, really frequently. It's almost like every time they kind of find something they want to change, because it's all digital stuff, like all of their rules and all of their cards are online. As soon as they find something, they update it, and before you know it, like, you have to check every time you come to play a game whether you're on the right kind of version or not. And I think they go through a lot of changes early in a game's life, and then it seems to slow down later. But I always feel that when a game's new from War Cradle, I almost have to just sit back and just say, I'll get to it when it calms down a little bit. I struggled a bit with Wild West Exodus in the early days, and I struggled a bit with Dystopian Wars in the early days for those same reasons. Phil says the casual matched players want to participate in the competitive player discourse online, so they'll buy the book and hardly use it. Yeah, absolutely, mate. Ed saying the Seasons thing is a copy of the structure FFG introduced for X-Wing in 2nd edition. The difference is FFG gave the updates away in the free app rather than expecting people to pay. Yeah, that's it. When it's a digital app on something online, and it's they're basically sort of pressing a button, updating the thing, the points, costs of everything, and people get all that stuff basically kind of delivered to them. It also means that if you're a new player, you always know that you're playing with the latest stuff, because you download the app and all of the new stuff's on there. The Malifaux stuff's very much like that, because it's all digital cards on their Malifaux app, and anything that works from a digital thing like that will always be like that. But unfortunately, GW have seemed very much against kind of going down that digital route. Cardos is saying, as long as new rules help balance the game or make it more fun, I'm for rules updates as often as need be. I don't think a game always needs to be kind of balanced, though. I think you'll never really get perfect balance, and every time you introduce some new models, you will shake up that balance. I think that's essentially kind of what's happened with every game. But if I look at something like Marvel Crisis Protocol, it's in a good place. Like, there's a lot of moving parts, but you're trying to get a bell curve when it comes to the ability of your characters. There always has to be somebody kind of towards the bottom end and always somebody towards the top end, but you're trying to get the vast majority of your characters across the kind of the middle of that bell curve, so that you're basically always trying to pick and choose somebody. And then when you do an update, you kind of address the extremities. You should only really be kind of tweaking the stuff at the bottom end. You shouldn't really be worried too much about the stuff in the middle of the bell curve. It's those models that never get picked, that nobody ever plays, or the ones that become an auto include. That's where you kind of do the adjustments and stuff. Andrew saying, implying GW could even react to the meta properly in the first place. I mean, surely that's what they're trying to do. That they're trying to or they're given the impression that they are reacting to what happens. Like, at the end of the day, if when Games Workshop release a new edition or they release a new codex, no matter how much playtesting they do, they can never do enough playtesting. There will be more games played in the first month of a new codex released around the world than they could ever hope to do playtesting in a year. And some things will kind of come out. So I'm not kind of saying that they get it perfectly right every time, or even that they could get it perfectly right every time. There's always going to be some tweaks and things, but moving everything every 6 months feels like too much to me. James says video games have codified the 3-month season for updates. I think 6 months for people who are heavily in is fine. For casual gamer, ignore them and play on. I think the thing with video games, mate, and somebody else mentioned this in the Facebook group today, the thing with video games is it's automatically delivered to you. It doesn't cost you anything. Like if you think about something like Fortnite, for example, or something like League of Legends. When the new season comes and everything changes, that's just like the next kind of it's refreshing the game, if you like, and the game plays very differently because of it. But it's you like new players are not going to be playing with the wrong update, because every time you switch it on, everything's there. You can't choose to just keep playing the old version, if you know what I mean. So I think with video games, it almost just happens automatically, a little bit like Ed was saying with the X-Wing, the app update. But when there's lots of books dotted around, and there's some rules in a White Dwarf, and there's some rules online, and there's some stuff in FAQs, and there's some stuff in chapter approved, I just think that becomes quite confusing. And if you do that too often, it becomes kind of doubly confusing. Edson, MCP was due a balance update when the takeover of Star Wars games was announced. That pushed things back. I don't think it didn't need much though. I mean, it didn't get a massive update. Like a few of the kind of core box models, the first models that they ever wrote rules for example, needed some tweaks. But it didn't need a major update. Like of the 100 models that are out, there was only like 19 models had their stats changed, and some of them very, very minor. So I wouldn't say it was a massive update. Marcus saying it sounds like GW trying to do real world microtransactions. There is an element of that, like season passes and stuff like that. It feels like chapter approved is becoming like a 6-month season pass. Father Knows Best says Infinity does that too. They started making certain models be essential to compete in missions, models that prior to weren't bought or used all that much. And there's an element of doing this from a financial point of view as well, yeah. Ian says, how do we expect them to put another story on the house? At the end of the day, I'm not blaming GW for anything. I mean, at the end of the day, this is not about bashing them. They make a very popular game, and the majority of fans seem quite happy with it. I'm talking about more generally about kind of the combination of too frequent an update, in my opinion, and then also making people pay for it as well. Christian sharing the link there for the merch. Thank you very much, mate. And Marcus saying, be kind and don't forget to drop a like. Ed saying, the fact you don't need to paint your ships in X-Wing makes a difference too. There is that as well, mate. The fact that it's not taking you 6 to 12 months to put together and paint an army, you can buy a model and play it, basically. It does make a big difference. Glenn saying, if you had a regular play group that you'll get games with, I'd be all for 6-month updates and seasons. But as a casual player who doesn't, these paid updates wouldn't get used if I did buy them. Yeah, and I think that's the case. I think it's almost a case of now, if I was suddenly now it's kind of catch-22. If I wanted to suddenly start playing 40k now, I'd need to buy chapter approved to understand the points costs so I could build an army. But the chances are I would never get to play that army before those points were kind of already out of date. Now that to me as a new player is a big reason why I just wouldn't even bother starting these days. And I maybe I'm alone in that thought, but it just feels quite frustrating that I know people will say, oh, you can get them online and stuff like that, and technically that's piracy and you shouldn't be getting them like that, and I know everyone does, and all, you know, battle what's it called again, Battle Scribe and all that kind of stuff. I know you can, but just make them free. Just make the points free. All the other stuff, I'm sure people would still quite happily buy the books for mission. If they did like a mission pack or something like that and all that, I'm sure people would still buy them. But just make the points free. It shouldn't be it shouldn't be stuck there behind a paywall. Dave saying 6 months seems so quick for everyone except the dedicated tournament players. Yeah, I mean, even if they were free, I think the point was like the point I made there about if I want to start playing now, I need to know the points to know that I'm building a viable or a kind of a legal list of to be able to play, and they'll be out of date before I get them on the table. At least if they were free, I might not feel like I just wasted 25 quid kind of thing. You know what I mean? Matt Lumley says updates at any rate wouldn't be an issue if they weren't monetized. Modern video games are a great example. I still think it depends. I still think it's less of an issue in a video game when all of the changes happen and it just automatically happens because you're playing the game, and any tweaks and stuff are like not really visual. So for example, like, you know, if they're tweaking the strength of weapons and things like that, speed of characters, that kind of things, they're just patching those things in. It's not something you have to relearn. But when it comes to tabletop stuff, people have put time and effort and money into crafting something, and then if that doesn't work anymore because they've done an update, then that's kind of, you know, that's quite frustrating. Andrew says, for bigger games, 6 months per points adjust, 12 months for tournament pack. You'd be surprised how little your army changes. Yeah, quite possibly, mate. Points costs might not change things very often, but if that's the case, if they don't change much, why do them? You know, if that's the case. Kate, good evening, says the risk of sounding like a company loyalist. I like Clash of Kings because the balancing is independent of Mantic and it adds new armies, characters, lore, and covers everything at once. I wouldn't suggest it's independent of Mantic, mine, to be fair, Kate. I would say it's it is done by people who are basically working on behalf of Mantic, be they volunteers or paid people, whatever it is. They're still working on behalf of Mantic. I would agree that it is not done to sell models. I would agree with that, but it's still not independent as such. Glenn saying, I don't like how GW abandons the yearly books. No Warcry Tome of Champions at the end of last year. They didn't do the Tome of Champions, mate, because they did all of the other updates, didn't they? They did they've now done the by faction books as opposed to one annual book. And I also think we have to cut them some slack that we're in a pandemic, people are not playing games and all that kind of stuff. I think when there was kind of like those books by faction came out, the vast majority of people were locked down and probably weren't playing games, so I never actually got any use out of them. So I'd probably cut them a little bit of slack on that one. Case of the pace of codexes for 40k is ludicrous. I have two different friends that bought a limited edition codex, and a year later they were out of date. And they both quit 40k after that. Yeah, I'm not as close when it comes to kind of like the codexes and stuff. I hear anecdotally, like I think like sort of like Sisters of Battle have had like 2 codexes in a year or something like that. I hear that kind of stuff, but I'm not close enough to really pass comment on it. Dave says, could never understand 40k OS. It was so confusing trying to understand all the different books and rules, how they spread out. Yeah, I just... It feels like it should be easier than it is, really. I mean, for the biggest game on the market, you'd assume that there would at least be a very easy entry into the game, and then you could expand and play kind of more, kind of wider than that. But it doesn't feel like that as somebody trying to look in, get into it. Eric M is saying he loves GW stuff, not a competitive player, but will be playing 40k casually with local folks and paying no attention to competitive updates. To be honest, mate, and he's saying after all he still plays Kill Team 2018. There is nothing wrong with doing that as well, and I think if you just play it in your own little local bubble, if you like, your own little local meta, there's no reason to kind of do that. If you think something is a bit overpowered, like agree with you, like house rule it a little bit, or agree not to take that model or something like that. And I think that happens a lot in general, but there's a feeling now that people are almost expected to buy this stuff, and I think people who want to stay up to date, if you like, absolutely do. They buy in every time. I'd say the vast majority of people who buy Citadel minis aren't playing at all, let alone competitively. I think a lot of people who tell you that they play the game don't play, never mind competitively. They might play 1 game a year, or they might play 2 games a year. I think it depends upon what you call playing as well. So not only is there a vast majority just modelers, or just painters if you like, I think the vast majority of people who would consider themselves gamers are not playing that often either. Josh saying, I think GW in particular releases new army books that are not always well balanced, so regular 6-month tweaks allow them to maintain the pace of rapid releases. I think it's hard, Josh. I think it's hard to kind of to perfect like sort of a new book. The thing is, they're working on stuff almost in isolation, because they're working on something while the game is moving away from them. And not only are they working on something that the game is moving, they've introduced something that is changing the game in a previous codex. They've probably already they're working on another codex that will impact it in another way as well. I just think it's a game that you will never ever be able to balance, and I always or you'll not be able to really balance it. And I always feel that these kind of, the faster the updates come out, they're almost there to distract from the fact that things are changing constantly. Frederick Schultz, good evening to you. Hello, matey. Busey says, is it worth printing all the new MCP character cards or just use the originals? I've printed them. It makes a big difference to the if you've got the core box models, it makes a big difference to the way the core box models play. So I would definitely recommend printing them off, mate. Josh says, I personally really like quarterly or every 6-month FAQs and adjustments to anything broken, but 95% of stuff should only get changed annually. Yes. Yeah, like I just said, mate, yeah. And Ian saying, balance asymmetric gaming is the most fun and realistic. It is the most fun and realistic. However, it is not designed for competitive players, shall we say. Samir saying, perfect balance is checkers or chess when the game is sat on the table, set up, ready to play. That is lost the second the players sit down. Yeah, and I think all people really want. I've talked about this in a previous live stream about like balance is a myth, really, and it's about the illusion of balance. What you want to do is you want to be able to sit down and play a game with the feeling that the game is not already over by the time you've kind of rolled the first dice. And that you have you have at least some control in trying to control what's happening. You don't want to sit down and go, oh, you've got that army, I will automatically get defeated now because it's kind of rock, paper, scissors. You don't want that kind of thing. I would say every game I've played of Marvel, for example, I've always felt I've been pretty close, and I've never felt I've been beaten by the rules. I've been beaten because I've played a better player or I've done something stupid. And I could have played better, kind of thing. I would never say I've ever felt completely out of a game. And that's all I want, really. I just want a fun game. The result's almost immaterial for me. As long as I've had an enjoyable game, I haven't just sat down and played for 5 minutes because we've put them on the table and then he's taken all my models off in his first turn, kind of thing. That's kind of where when it comes to balance. What was that one? Camo was saying, how long to create and publish a book? They'll be chasing their tail. That's exactly my point, mate. I mean, even if they do it pretty fast, I'm thinking like 3 months. I mean, like, you have to send stuff out. I'm assuming that things still get printed in China. The books always used to, but I'm assuming that it gets sent out to China. It's got to get printed in the vast numbers that GW stuff needs to get printed in, and in multiple different languages. Then it all needs to get kind of shipped back to the UK, and then it gets distributed around the world. That's not quick, especially in this kind of modern age, the post-COVID era, if you like. So I'm thinking, you know, like, they must be sending stuff to print at least 3 months before it's due on the shelves. So it's only really giving them 3 months to work with any data of what's changed, if you like. So, Hodginder saying there, yeah, there's too many gotcha moments instead of good strategy. I agree. John says, I think GW are obviously doing this to make money. They're a business. Agreed, mate. Yeah, but I also think a lot of other companies don't have things as tough because the number of games being played is so much lower. I wouldn't say that they don't have it as tough. If anything, they're basically they're not getting as much data back. But by the same stretch, they're smaller companies as well, and they tend not to have that many people concentrating on just sort of checking the balance of the game, if you like, If you take Mantic, for example, that's why they have things like rules committees and stuff like that. But the staff that work at Mantic are not just sat there watching to see what's happening with Kings of War. They're working on the new game and they're working on the new releases. Like it's not like they have a 40k team. And it's this guy's job to work on rules, and this guy's job to design miniatures, and this guy's job to paint the miniature. Like it's almost they've got people wearing like multiple hats in smaller companies. How are we doing for time? We'll give it a couple of more minutes. I'll kind of skim through some of this, and then we'll get through to the news as well. Joel saying, GW make something free. Are you taking crazy pills? They do the core rules free. You need all the other stuff to be able to play the games, but they do give you the rules for free. Matt's saying digital rule books are great. Think of the polar bears, save the trees, use a PDF. I'm not against digital rule books, if I'll be perfectly honest. However, a lot of people will always use the same excuse. But what I play tabletop games to get away from computers. What happens if your battery runs out when you're halfway through a game? All those kind of things. People will always come up with the same reasons why not. But I'm always surprised it's not a thing. I'll skim up ahead a little bit here just to try and catch up with some of this stuff. Ian said, I think I agree with you. Once a year update allows a lot of people to play it and suggest changes. It also depends on what you play, how to play. Yeah, and it also stops any kind of knee-jerk reactions as well. I think if things change too quickly, it's changing because of a very short period of time. Hope Lewis says, I print off all armies from one-page rules. Now I just collect what I like the look of, and I know I'll always have stats. I don't know how often one-page rules tweaks their stuff as well. Maybe I guess they don't have the competitive kind of sort of scene that really drives that kind of stuff as well. Sunlit says, I think GW are too scared to change the 40k rules to make them simpler and more sensible because they're afraid of the backlash from older gamers. I think at the end of the day, mate, like people who are not buying 40k because they think it's too complex might be in the minority. Like it sells by the bucket load, so whatever they're doing is pleasing a lot of people and making a lot of money. So maybe there's not a need to change just because we don't necessarily like it. And I say we, I mean me and anybody else that feels the same as me. Just because we don't like it doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means it's not a game for us. In the same way I don't listen to certain kind of music, I wouldn't expect that band to go and kind of create music I like. I just go and choose a band where I do like their music. And I think 40k is the same thing. There's nothing wrong with 40k per se. It's got some things that I don't like about it, and it's why I don't play it. But it doesn't mean it's a bad game. It just means it's not the kind of game that I enjoy. So when it comes to change, I'm not really sure it does need to change. It's got a lot of people. It makes a lot of people very happy. So, Jess says, I bloody hate reading things on a screen. It doesn't sink in well. I'm so bloody middle-aged. I'm the same, mate. I must admit, I tend to print stuff off if I get a digital version of it because I prefer to read a physical copy. However, when it comes to kind of like just going to like a game and like if I going to like a gaming table or something like that, I'd quite happily flick through it on my phone or something if I was looking for a specific rule or something. Andrew says, example of a bad one, Warmer Hordes. Think of a different army was updated monthly and every army had at least something touched or new per quarter. It might have done in the third version, mate. I didn't play in third version, but when I was playing in Prime 2, it wasn't like that. It didn't change very often at all, if I'm perfectly honest. And when it did, they basically released new card packs for that particular army, so that basically you had the latest stuff. But I don't know what it was like later on in the day, kind of thing. Anyway, I think we've probably hashed that now quite a lot. There was a bit to chat through, but as always, it's interesting to hear what people think. I think to kind of summarise it. Personally, I think 6 months is a bit too quick for a game of that size, where you need a lot of models and it takes time to be able to kind of build a list and that kind of stuff. However, for whatever reason, money, I would suggest that's what they're doing. And when it comes to other games, I think not putting them behind a paywall and probably annually is probably the best I could hope for personally. But I do understand everybody likes other stuff. So yes, let's get to the new stuff, eh? So the first thing I wanted to talk about was these things, the Rift Forged Orcs, from Kings of War by Mantic. They basically went up for sale today. They've been on pre-order for a little while, but today sees them going live. So if you're in the market for a new Kings of War army, or you're fancying some new kind of some models, these look pretty nice. So basically, you've got these Rift Forged Orcs, which we went through a little bit on a news article a few weeks ago, I think, when we were talking about them, and about how these are not your kind of stereotypical kind of sort of bloodthirsty, sort of not quite intelligent, sort of old fantasy trope orcs, if you like. These ones have got a little bit more about them, and these are some of the. So this is what you get basically if you buy the what's it called, like the mega army set. You get a nice little kind of set there. There's some a nice mix of stuff. These I think we talked about this one as well. We did talk about this because I remember this dude here with the kind of gurning a little bit. This fella here. Yeah, but there's some nice stuff in these orcs. But the model that really kind of stands out to me in this range, I have to say, and it's the one I put on the thumbnail today, was this one, the Storm Slayer. This model is basically it's resin. It's on a 50mm square base, but I must admit I do really like this. It's almost got a bit of a Thanos feel about it, if I'm honest. Might be just the paint scheme and the purple skin that marries, but yeah, I do like this model. No idea how tall it is, but judging by that gallery picture, it does stand a fair bit taller than these kind of normal kind of grunts, if you like, behind it. But yeah, they go up for sale today. Nice to see them. You've basically got these are plastic as well. The main new units are plastic, and I think like kind of, you know, £110 for the mega army set, £70 for the orc army size thing. You're getting, I think it normally tells you get. So you're getting 40 of the plastic Rift Forged Orcs. You're getting the resin Stormcaller, 3 resin Thunderseers, and then you're getting your bases as well. So what's that? 44 models. That's not too bad for 70 quid, I think. So yeah, that's the first bit of news. That's what we've got there. Let's have a little look back in the chat if anybody's having a little chat about the orcs there. See what folks are thinking. Matthew Wilkinson saying, I love the Rift Forge Orcs. I wish I had people that played here. I quite like them as well, mate, and I'll be perfectly honest, if I hadn't bought my Halfling army, I think I would have picked these up as my next Kings of War army, and the only thing stopping me from buying them really is the fact that I've got a project on the go now. Just as saying they're nice. Lobin says Thunder Orcs here. Christian sharing the link there as well. If you're buying hobby supplies, don't forget to use my Goblin Gaming affiliate link. If you are picking up any of those Mantic Orcs, if you buy them through Goblin Gaming, you normally save 20%. You go through my link and you'll pay the same price and I make a small commission. Matthew saying Thanos Orc, yeah. Ian says 50mm square, Mantic doing God's work. Jess saying, yeah, great value for money. Yeah, I think even they had a little price increase not too long ago with all of the costs of everything that's going up with shipping and material costs and things, but I think even with the increased cost, it's still pretty good value. Tony Howell, hello mate, I don't think I said hello to you earlier on. So these are nice mini, the Stormforged big boy, I like. Ian says, what about the 110 mega army? How many models are in that box? Let me go back, mate, and I'll show you how many's in that box. So in this one there's 80 of the plastic Rift Forged Orcs. There's 1 resin, so there's 84 made basically, but 4 of them are basically, so there's 20 there, 20 there, 20 there, 20 there. These 3 guys, must be 85. Yeah, 85 minis in that set, mate. So it's it's still not, I just miscounted there. Still not too bad at all, 85 minis. What's that, 85 for £110? If you get them through Goblin Gaming, I think there's 20% off. In fact, I'm even going to have a look and see if they're on the Goblin Gaming site and see how much they are. Let's have a little look. We'll have a look in Tabletop Games, Fantasy, Kings of War. Are the Rift Forged Orcs on here? Let's have a little look. Rift Forged Forged Orcs. There they are. Let's have a little look on there. I'll show you how. So, Goblin Gaming, £88 for the Mega Army and £56 for the standard army, if you like. So that's 85 models for £88 and 40. Do we say 44 models for £56? That's not too bad, is it? That's pretty good value. Right. James says Doc Ock's done. That's all these 50mm Marvel models done. Nice one. You are welcome, Ian. John Estel, good evening, matey. He says, I've missed the chance to say those orcs are so nice. I want to paint my skin green. Yeah. There's worse things you could do with your life, mate, isn't there? Anyway, back to the news. So, something else that is coming up new. Folks who kind of know me will know that I quite like these exit games by Thames and Cosmos. These are basically like an escape room in a box. And I also know that quite a lot of you randomly quite like Lord of the Rings stuff. I don't know why, it's not really for me, but anyway, they are making a Shadows over Middle-earth Lord of the Rings exit game. As you can see here, this one is, for anyone that doesn't know, basically down here you have the kind of like how difficult they are. I've tried them like on pretty much all difficulties. The expert ones are very hard, and the novice ones I would say are good. If you need to kind of play the first one to basically to understand how the game works, almost get in the head of the creators so you understand what the kind of puzzles are like. Those kind of like level 2 novice ones are a pretty good place to start. But yeah, this is kind of gives you an idea of the type of stuff that you get in these books. The exit games, I would say, is that once you've played them, you can't play them again. Obviously, because one, you know the puzzles and you know the answers, but also because you end up destroying some of the things. Now that sounds quite bad, but these things cost about 13 quid. They're not a fortune. They're great for kind of like a night in, like with a few friends. And it's actually quite creative the way you have to destroy things. You have to cut things up in order to solve certain puzzles, and I quite like that about them. And I kind of, you know, I'm seeing the 13 quid, and that's not a lot. It's not pennies kind of thing, but then, you know, I'd spend more than that on a takeaway kind of thing. So, you know, or a cinema ticket. So from that perspective, I don't think they're bad value. And this just tells you here, Middle-earth is in grave danger. Frodo and the Fellowship are on their way to Mordor to destroy the One Ring, but they need your help. Make haste and carry out Gandalf's secret assignments. Can you buy Frodo enough time to reach Mount Doom? It says the escape room game you can play at home, an unforgettable, unique gaming experience. Solve all the puzzles as fast as you can. Can you help save Middle-earth? Yeah, so I can't obviously recommend this particular one because I've never played it, but I can recommend the exit games. So if you're looking for something, you know, maybe something to kind of get the family interested, something to do, maybe, you know, like instead of just settling down with another Netflix show, it's something to do on a Saturday night kind of thing, and you're into Lord of the Rings, this might be something worth picking up. VG is saying, yeah, excellent value. He's going to stick with the Ratkin and the Gobbos. Nice one, mate. James, I just built Thor, and while I wouldn't dream of blaming Andy for my MCP spending, I did a... Yes, mate. James, I did a level 2 exit with some non-board gamers, and we really enjoyed it. Yeah, me and my wife sort of have played quite a few now, so we like some of the kind of the harder ones, a bit more of a challenge type things, but that's just us really. But yeah, I would say if you've never done one before, start with one of the kind of the novice ones, because you almost have to get your head around how the creators of the puzzles are thinking. Once you go, that's kind of how they think. Those are kind of how some of the puzzles get solved. You start to be able to kind of solve them a bit easier. Samir says the exit game sounds like so much fun. I say, mate, I really like them. I definitely recommend them. Lord Maiden says it sounds like a video game that was released where you were a group of heroes and your job was to distraction investigate something. I know what you mean, mate. But if anybody's ever done like an escape room, they're very kind of along those lines. But it's just a nice little kind of self-contained thing. Ian says need to pick your crowd with these, else they might throw rocks at you while yelling nerd. You know what? I think these kind of things are way more kind of accessible these days now. People playing board games, people doing escape rooms, people doing all sorts of online kind of gaming and stuff, like Zoom games and stuff. We did like an escape room type thing online. Me and my wife and my brother and sister-in-law did it like over Zoom, and it was in lockdown, and one of these things you could buy online, and we were both basically emailed the clues and stuff, and we had to work together to solve this thing, and it was quite fun. So I think that kind of thing is a bit more widely accessible now. Anyway, we'll move on to our next bit of tabletop news. And this one was a bit of a surprise, I'll be honest, when I saw this one. This is a new starter set for Kill Team. Now you will remember that I think is there a picture of it further down here? The Octarius starter set, which wasn't really a starter set. It was just the Octarius set, if you like, came out a little while ago, and it had the Orc Commandos in. It had the Death Corps of Krieg. It had the very nice kind of Orc Octarius terrain. It had the rule book in there as well, and it also had the points lists for the two different armies, plus dice and measurement tokens and that kind of stuff. And I think off the top of my head it was about £125. But this kind of come out of the blue a little bit. This is basically a set designed for new players who want to jump into a fantastic game of secret missions and sci-fi skirmishes. It features 2 kill teams, the grimly determined veteran guardsmen of the Death Corps of Krieg, and the motley crew of cunning but brutal Orc Commandos. And that's basically what you get. As you can see there, the terrain, it's got like a kind of very kind of small amount of terrain. It looks like it's probably got a paper mat in there, maybe, as opposed to the kind of thicker cardboard ones. And it's obviously got the measuring tokens and the dice in there as well. Now, interestingly, it doesn't come. I don't think it comes with the rule book. James in finally some GW content. I don't think it comes. It says core rules there. Now that might be the core rule book. No, it doesn't. It says here, alongside full complement of fantastic miniatures, the starter set contains everything you need to get stuck right in, from tokens and tools to gameplay mat and scattered terrain, plus to learn how to play with a streamlined 96-page core rules book. Now, I'm not sure if that's the full rules or a streamlined version of the rules to just get you playing. It doesn't really explain that very well. As well as a 56-page Recruit Edition book packed with background info and tutorial missions. So you obviously get the Veteran Guardsmen, and then basically you also get the Commandos there as well. So I've just been looking today, because obviously I get access to see how much these things are when they go up for pre-order. And UK price, the Kill Team starter set is going to be £65. Now, £65 for that doesn't feel too bad at first glance. I think people were selling those kind of when they were breaking this down. I think they were selling one of those armies for about £35. So you're getting the 2 armies basically, and then you're getting everything else in the box pretty much for free, really. But in comparison to the £125 box, there's quite a bit of stuff missing. James says a streamlined 96-page rulebook. I must admit, mate, it was a bit of an oxymoron there. You do get quite a bit of stuff in the £125 box that might actually still make that sort of better value. So the Kill Team Octarius book, this I think is this covers all the Kill Team rules for the Orc Commandos and the Veteran Guardsmen. And it basically has some missions in there as well. And that is going up for sale as well, or going for pre-order. That is £25. Then there is the Kill Team Octarius actual terrain set. So this is the terrain that was in the £125 box as well. And this obviously comes with a map there as well. I think it's hard to tell from that picture, but that one is a double-sided foldable battle board, so that's not like a piece of paper type thing. That is the cardboards, and that terrain, he's looking on his list here for it, is £60. So bearing in mind you got that terrain and you got that book in the original starter set, if you're going to end up buying them anyway, you might as well buy the original starter set. So I'm not really sure who this is aimed at. If you're like, I'm all for getting sort of newer people into the games, all that kind of stuff. But I wonder why they've done this. I wonder why they've broken it down like that. It doesn't make sense to me. But so basically, coming up for pre-order will be the Kill Team Codex Octarius, £25. The Kill Team starter set, £65. The Kill Team Commandos, so the Orcs are being sold separately now as well, for £36.50. And the Kill Team Veteran and Guardsman will be sold separately as well for £34.50. And the Killzone Octarius that we were just looking at here will be £60. So essentially what they've done is they've taken that core box and they've basically just split it down into bits. Now maybe some people will just buy the terrain, totally get that. Maybe some people will just buy a box of these to kind of flesh out their kill team, or maybe they just want a kill team, they don't want to buy the whole set. But yeah, I must admit it seems strange that they've broken it down like this. Anyway. Let's have a little look and see what the chat is saying here. Glenn says, I wonder if they rewrote the format of the rules. The original rule book doesn't flow well. I'm not sure. I've not read them, if I'm perfectly honest. Tony said I have trouble with the rules for Mousetrap. Christian sharing the Amazon link as well. Thank you very much, mate. The affiliate link. Ed saying the trick would be finding Octarius these days. There was still plenty about, me. I don't think it's sold out. It certainly was. I mean, my local gaming store not too long ago was selling them off for, was it £75? Yeah, they were selling them off for £75 because they still had stock of them they wanted to shift. So I don't think it's sold out. I mean, that's the other side of it. That doesn't exist anymore now. So if it's not for sale, they're not printing any more of them. So I guess that's who it's aimed at. The people that missed out, unfortunately. But I think there's still some around. And Peter's saying, I paid €51 for my Guardsman, shipping included, so not too bad. Ian says, could it be to separate them so people can buy them at separate times or for separate presents? Yeah, quite possibly, mate. Quite possibly. Like I say, it's you'll probably find it's more. Some people will buy the starter set because they want both of the armies, if you like, and it's the cheapest way to. Like it's cheaper to buy the starter set than it is to buy the Orcs and the Guardsmen separately, if you like, together. You know what I mean? Like separately and then buy them each. Spylord says I have loads of terrain, so I was very pleased by the budget price of this starter. There is that as well, mate, if you've already got the terrain. That is a consideration as well, to be fair. James says I'd maybe get the Krieg just because I like them. They seem fun to print in a diorama, yeah. And Somblin says I think they wanted to create a lower entry price point. The entry prices for the box sets have gone up constantly last year. Kill Team and Red Harvest, they were obviously too high. Yeah, I do wonder if they're getting some kind of feedback from that. Like Ed's just saying there, if you look hard enough, I'm sure you can find some, but it's not like the AOS 3 launch box, which is still everywhere. Yeah, I mean, the AOS launch box is a prime example. Maybe they've just seen that those kind of higher price points is starting to yield sort of smaller numbers now, and these entry points might well be the future as well. Kind of pick up the hardcore gamers at the start, if you like, and then kind of pick up the crowd afterwards with the lower entry points. And James is saying, I assume most of these smaller boxes will be shelf staples. The named boxes, Octarius and Indomitus, will always be limited. Yeah, exactly, mate. Kind of just what I was saying there, really. Next up, we also have, if I can come to this one, we also now have, there's an expansion for Stargrave coming in as well. For those of you, I know there's a few of you like your Stargrave games. They're called The Last Prospector. Publication date is the 28th of April this year. I don't think you can zoom into the cover there. I'll tell you what I will do. I'll come in. I'll come in there a little bit, so at least you can try and see the cover of it. Yeah, there. And essentially, it was saying it's a second supplement for Stargrave, offers a host of new scenarios and rules for gaining political backing. Let me just do that down a little bit so you can at least see the text on the screen. for gaining political backing as you fight across the ravaged galaxy. Again, this is by Joseph McCulloch, and the supplement from Stargrave, the crews must travel from an asteroid to asteroid and even down to the system's single, barely inhabited planet, searching for a man who claims to have discovered a big score. During their journey, players will fight through numerous different environments, including asteroid mines, zero gravity, and even hellish jungle. Captains must curry favour with the various small political factions that can hold power in the belt. Only through a combination of wits, diplomacy and weapons can players hope to reach the last prospector and gain a share of his claim. So yeah, it's nice to see Stargrave getting a little bit more of expansion there as well. Folks seem to be really enjoying it from what I understand. So yeah, if you're into your Stargrave, if you're into your sci-fi Frostgrave, if you like, yeah, this is something there to pick up as well. So, let me get my chat back here. Peter says, well, Death Corp's plastics will get sales no matter what, I believe. Yeah, I agree, mate. I think they will. Christian saying, time for bed. Thanks, Andy. And night all. Thank you very much, Christian. I appreciate your help, mate. Take care, buddy. And Jess says, what a belter. Sounds great. He's a good lad, Joe McCulloch. I've never played one of these games, mate, if I'm perfectly honest. They've personally never really kind of been the kind of thing that I've played in the past, so I've never really kind of gone looking at them, but maybe one day. And then I think to very quickly round up our kind of news section, if you like, we're going to just go back to GW briefly, because Necromunda's had a bit of an update as well with some new hive scum here. So not only if you're into Necromunda, if you're into Frostgrave as well, into Stargrave as well, or any of the other kind of sci-fi type skirmish games, these might be right up your street. So these are basically bolster your gangs with 4 extremely expendable hive scum. So yeah, so these are 4 new models that are coming here. Have I got a price for these? Let's have a little look. Necromunda hive scum. These are going to be £12. So actually, is that right? Necromunda hive scum, £12. I can't believe it. Yeah, they are. They're going to be £12. So yeah, then don't look too bad at all. And then there's also some Delac weapons and upgrades. So again, if you're into kind of tweaking with your models, or you want some bits of weapons and things to kind of to outfit your sci-fi games, this Delac upgrade sprue as well isn't too bad at all. And that Delac upgrade sprue will be £15. It says it comes with deliciously devious weapons like grav guns and webbers, as well as old favourites like heavy flamers, plasma guns and melter guns, plus a scope and a set of new heads for the House of Shadow. And then there's also this Underdog card pack as well, which is priced £9.50, and this is basically these tactics cards help you pull enough shenanigans to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. And the pack also contains 12 universal gang tactics. And then we also have Slopper and Scabber, which I must admit I actually quite like these models. These are basically Slopper and Scabber can handle themselves in a skirmish, but their main draw comes from their extracurricular activities, cooking and trading. And these two, have we got prices for those as well? Necromunda. I don't think we have, actually. I don't think we've got prices for those yet. No, we haven't. So interesting anyway. But yeah, so if you're not only for Necromunda, if you're a fan of that, but if you're into any other sci-fi games, these models, the Necromunda models, are always quite useful in other kind of sci-fi worlds. So yeah, maybe these might be right up your street. So that's the news now. John says, Jim says, I can't decide what red to use for Iron Man. A nice bright red always works good, mate. John says, sorry for the delay. I had my hands covered in lava. I could see myself going for that kill team box to play with my son. Some random terrain, paint a kill team each, play simplified rules and slow grow. Yeah, I suppose when you talk about it like that, 65 quid's not too bad. You're going to get 20% discount elsewhere. So what's that, 12 quid off it? You're talking, what, like 48 quid? That's not too bad, I suppose, when you start thinking about it in that respect. Jess says all the Necromunda minis are great. Yeah, James is saying buying Necromunda cards is a better investment than Bitcoin. I think you're probably right there, mate. Nostux says I've been waiting for those Delac guns for what feels like 2 years. Lord Maiden says, hang on, was that Blitzball? I think it might have been. No, it wasn't Blitzball, mate. It was Blood Bowl, I think. Yeah, it was Blood Bowl, and it was basically Skaven Rat Ogres. That's what it was there. I'll show you. It was that. The Blood Bowl Skaven Rat Ogre. And is that up for pre-order as well? Let's have a look. No price for that one. No price for that. So yeah, that's what it was, buddy. Nostock says we use the models in one-page rules. Gang Wars gave up chasing the Necromunda rules. Yeah, there's another game where I feel like I would love Necromunda if I could really sort of dedicate the time and effort to learning all those rules. Jim said, I wish Necromunda was a simple game like Warcry. I love the setting, but I'm absolutely with you, mate. Absolutely with you. If they released a very simplified sci-fi Warcry version, if you like, I think I'd be quite happy to kind of play that with Necromunda minis. VGS, who said Blitzball. Sunday Sykes says, random question, Andy. Have you ever played Dice Throne? Good set of games, though some boxes are better than others. I've never played it, mate. No, I don't know anything about it, buddy. Who summoned VJ? VJ says he was painting. By the way, Fireslayer flesh contrast over Vallejo metal colour silver makes such a great brass and bronze. I quite like the GW brasses, to be fair. Brass and bronze is something that they do quite well. The golds, I'm always a little bit like, they're all right, they do a job, but they're never fantastic unless you kind of play with them a bit. But the brasses, I always find it okay. Simple Necromunda, that's Stargrave. I think the problem with Stargrave is Stargrave not more kind of campaign focused though? Like it's much more, I think it's a bit more gritty from what I understand, like sort of a bit more granular when it comes to kind of equipping weapons and building your stats and stuff like that. I'd quite like something like, you know, when you've got the Warcry cards with the characters on, I'd quite like a sci-fi version of that. James says, say Blitzball 3 times into a mirror and VG appears and sound mixes your next event. Rob says, Warplock Bronze is a belt and corner. Hello, Rob, by the way. Yeah, Warplock Bronze is great. I love the way it goes on. I remember using the old tin bits as well. I used to use tin bits all the time. There's another kind of brassy, it might be Scorpion Brass or Brass Scorpion. That one goes on really nice as well. Nostok says, I think the video mixes you in the mirror. Yeah, that might be one of those things as well. So that's kind of the news for tonight. So we've had a good chat about how often is too often when it comes to updates. I think we didn't really reach a conclusion. We don't always do that. There's not always a conclusion to stuff. But I think generally, we kind of concluded it very much depends on how often you're playing as to, or how competitively you're playing as to whether you really want to kind of get into that. And we've kind of gone through the news and stuff as well. Andrew's saying, so bacon. I'm on a diet, mate. I'm off the bacon, unfortunately, there. So, Lobbying saying, yeah, it's a nice dark metal colour. Yeah, it is. Nostock says tin bits. Those were the days, mate. Those were the days. Sunday says, Stargrave looks fun. I've been wanting to get into that, but hard to get a group in my area. Yeah, there is that issue as well. Kind of like locally, it's I don't really know anybody that kind of plays it and stuff. Jess, has been a good show, lots of interesting stuff. Thank you very much, mate. Peter says, conclusion, it's up to you if you can personally be bothered with updating. Yeah, and I think that's always the case with anything I talk about. Like, it's, you know, I'll only ever give my opinion. I can't speak for anybody else, because they are just like opinion pieces, really. But I just find some of the topics a bit more interesting than others, and it's kind of a bit more deep, really. It was never really meant to be about GW. I know we ended up being quite GW centric on this one, purely on the basis of like what GW are doing. That's really kind of sort of prompted that discussion for me. But I don't really play their game, so personally, it doesn't really matter to me what they're doing. It was more the idea of, like, I'd never really thought about it, like, how often is too often? Have I played games in the past that update faster than I can kind of keep up with? And I'll be honest, the only game that I have felt that was 40k when I tried to go into it in 8th edition. I bought the 8th edition box. I bought the indexes, and before I'd even kind of got my first models to the table, the indexes were basically wiped out and codexes had come along. And unfortunately, the groups of people I intended to play with were very kind of heavy tournament players, and they all moved straight onto the new stuff. So it wasn't even a case of like, oh, well, we're not going to go with that. We're just going to use the indexes. That'll be fine kind of thing. And I just felt like it kind of got away from me. I even remember thinking that I think there was a second Space Marine Codex came out before I'd even kind of finished painting the models that I had kind of thing. So yes, I'm a slow painter, but I'm sure I'm not alone in that. VJ says, makes me send Andy a Vallejo metal colour. Tinny Tin is a good sub for Tin Bits. VJ says, pick yourself up any of the Vallejo metal colours, you won't go back to metallics. I think if I'm ever anywhere, mate, if I'm ever in a game shop that sells the Vallejo stuff, I might pick one up just to try it. James is getting in before the mid-credit scene this week. Thor, Iron Man or Cap? Do Thor, mate. I know you were looking forward to painting Thor. Do Thor. Tasty Brain Drain, good evening, buddy. How you doing? Peter says, really, when we play in our group, we stick with what works for us. Doesn't matter what the rest play, really. Yeah, and I think if you've got like a really sort of stable group that just plays amongst yourselves, whether it's like a group of like 5 or 6 people and you're only ever playing in your own little kind of bubble like I mentioned before, I think that works, and it works for any game. But unfortunately, if you go to like a gaming group, or you go to a gaming club, or you go to a local store, that becomes kind of less and less likely, really. Jess says, GW are always the skull-covered elephant in the room. Vijay says, they are so fluid and cover so well. Hands down, they own the GW metallics. Scale 75. I've heard about Scale 75 ones as well. Again, it's always just about accessibility of paints. That's why I always just stick with GW stuff. Ian saying, you want to come to Salisbury? I'll show you the model centre. It's a long way to come, mate, just to get a pot of Vallejo paint. I'm sure there'll be a one closer. But thanks for the offer. Peter says, yes, we got a stable group, all colleagues from work. Banter's more important than the game. Yeah, I agree, mate. I mean, to be honest, like I play my Marvel games with like a stable group of guys, but those guys also kind of travel all over and do tournaments, kind of like most, if not most weekends, certainly most months. So they're very kind of like competitively focused as well. So like, it's okay saying we've got a stable group, but that group doesn't just play only that group, if you like. Johnson, yes, second the Vallejo metallics. You can sometimes get really good deals on Amazon for sets of them. I know a guy with an affiliate link. It doesn't work for me, mate. I'm not allowed to shop on my own affiliate link. James says, I just got my tickets for Beachhead in Bournemouth. Anyone else going? When is that, mate? Oh, he's just saying, sorry, Saturday the 12th and Sunday the 13th of February. Oh, Super Bowl weekend, mate. I wouldn't be travelling anywhere then. Vijay says, Bants is always more important than a game. I agree, buddy. Andrew says, must be good living on an island smaller than Texas. It is, mate, except what you're not taking into effect is that public transport and the roadways are absolutely garbage. So you can live in the smallest place in the world, but if getting anywhere is a right pain in the backside, yeah, then it's not. It becomes a different question. Phil says, what about the previewed Lego-faced 5-headed Dark Reapers? Lego-faced 5-head Dark Reapers. No idea, mate. Don't know what they are. James says Lou buys a set of Vallejo metallics on Amazon. No, because Lou doesn't have an Amazon account. She doesn't have Amazon Prime. We just have a family Amazon Prime. So yeah, doesn't work like that, mate, unfortunately. Anyway, I'm going to wrap that up now. I'm gonna go and have a cup of tea, because I like to have a nice little warm drink before I go to bed, because I'm getting old, and then I'm getting up at the crack of dawn tomorrow to go to the gym again in the morning, so no late nights for me tonight. And I want to try and get up I want to be able to get up without seeing the Rams score tonight, go to the gym and go on the treadmill and watch the Rams highlights of the game tomorrow. So that's my plan. Andrew says, enjoy your booze. Yeah, my cup of tea, mate. My green tea. That's what I'm drinking. Green tea. Matthew says, woo, Jim. Jess says, cheers, Andy. No worries. James says, no Bovrolaholics. I quite like a warm milk, mate. I'll be honest. I do quite like a cup of warm milk. And Lomain says, to the Discord. where Andy decides what wine we all are, and Sunday Sex is off to work. Thank you, buddy. Take care. Nostalgia's Horlicks. There's a blast from the past. Yeah, I don't mind a bit of Bovril at a football match when it gets a bit cold. I don't mind a Bovril. James Brace's warm milk, drink of champions. You can't beat a bit of warm milk, can you? And Sammy says green tea, another pound lost. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much, folks. Anyway, yes, this week the video will be the review of the MDF terrain. Now it is finally finished. I couldn't believe how long it took me to do it. And then we'll see you again next Monday for another exciting Monday night live stream. Take care, folks. See you all next week. Thanks for watching my video. I hope that you really enjoyed it. And if you did, why not consider clicking on the suggested video below to see more of the work that I've done. If you'd like to support the long-term sustainability of this channel, why not consider checking out my Patreon, where you can pledge and support from as little as $2 a month. And there is lots of different tiers and bonuses, which will give you access to a private Discord server. It will give you free I've got to come back, haven't I, for an intro there. I've just read your comment again, James Braces. Little dash of cinnamon in the warm milk. Welcome to the middle class. My wife thinks I'm like a 10-year-old child drinking warm milk before bed. Never mind middle class. Celia. Thanks for watching my video. I hope that you really enjoyed it. And if you did, why not consider clicking on the suggested video below to see more of the work that I've done. If you'd like to support the long-term sustainability of this channel, why not consider checking out my Patreon, where you can pledge and support from as little as $2 a month. And there is lots of different tiers and bonuses, which will give you access to a private Discord server. It will give you free t-shirts, free mugs, a podcast every month, and a number of other things, including getting your name at the end of every video, like these awesome folks who already support me now.